The first thing billionaire Ethan Caldwell noticed wasn't that his 3-year-old triplets were asleep. It was where they were sleeping, not in their expensive handcrafted beds covered with luxury blankets imported from Italy, not under the crystal chandelier that illuminated the nursery, but on the cold wooden floor, curled tightly around the family's new housemaid. The young black woman lay on the hardwood without a pillow or blanket, one arm wrapped protectively around little Emma while Noah slept on her shoulder. Tiny Olivia held the maid's hand so tightly that her fingers had turned white. It looked as though she had chosen the hard floor so the children could sleep peacefully. Ethan froze in the doorway. Then he noticed something else. The children, who hadn't slept through a single night since their mother's passing almost 8 months earlier, were smiling in their sleep. What happened next would change every life inside that mansion forever. But before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Kindness of Power, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story. Share this video with someone who believes kindness can change lives. And don't forget to leave a comment telling us which city and country you're watching from. We love hearing from viewers all around the world. Ethan Caldwell had everything money could buy. At just 38 years old, he had built one of America's largest technology companies, owned luxury homes across 3 continents, and appeared regularly on magazine covers as one of the nation's most influential billionaires. Yet every evening when he stepped into his silent mansion, none of that success mattered. His wife, Sarah, had died unexpectedly from a sudden illness the previous year. The loss shattered him, but it devastated someone else even more, their triplets. Emma, Noah, and Olivia had gone from cheerful, energetic toddlers to frightened little souls who cried themselves to sleep every night. They refused to eat properly, barely smiled, and rejected every nanny Ethan hired. Within 6 months, 12 experienced caregivers had resigned. Some couldn't handle the children's emotional pain. Others admitted the children simply wouldn't let anyone near them. Desperate, Ethan hired one last person. Her name was Maya Johnson. 28 years old, quiet, respectful, a single mother who had recently lost custody of her own daughter after financial hardship forced her into homelessness. She never mentioned her past unless someone asked, and no one ever did. To Ethan's staff, she was simply the new maid. She cleaned, cooked, folded laundry, kept her head down, but the triplets noticed something different. Unlike everyone else, Maya never tried to replace their mother. She simply listened. When Emma cried, Maya sat beside her in silence until the tears stopped. When Noah refused dinner, Maya told funny stories about imaginary elephants who hated vegetables even more than he did. When Olivia woke up screaming from nightmares, Maya softly hummed an old lullaby her grandmother had once sung to her. Slowly, the impossible began happening. The children laughed again. Tiny giggles echoed through the halls for the first time in months. Even the gardeners smiled when they heard them. Ethan noticed. He just didn't know why. His work consumed nearly every waking hour. Meetings, investors, business trips, late-night conference calls. He assumed the therapists deserved the credit. Or perhaps time itself was healing his children. He never imagined the quiet maid dusting shelves had become the center of their tiny world. One afternoon, Ethan came home earlier than usual. He heard laughter floating from the backyard. Curious, he walked toward the garden. There sat Maya beneath an old oak tree. The triplets surrounded her with crayons and paper. "What are we drawing?" Noah asked excitedly. "Our happiest memories," Maya replied. Emma frowned, "But mine disappeared when Mommy went to heaven." Maya gently placed a hand over Emma's heart. "No, sweetheart. They're still here. They're just hiding because your heart has been hurting." Emma looked confused. "How do I find them?" "You make new happy memories. Then the old ones become brave enough to come back." Ethan stood silently behind the tree. For the first time since Sarah's funeral, he saw genuine hope in his daughter's eyes. That night, during dinner, Emma smiled. A real smile. "Daddy." "Today, Mommy visited me." Ethan's fork dropped. "What do you mean?" Emma pointed toward the stars outside. "Not really." But Maya said love never leaves. So Mommy still hugs us. We just can't see it. Oh! Tears filled Ethan's eyes. No therapist, no psychologist, no expensive grief counselor had managed to explain loss in a way a 3-year-old could understand. Yet Maya had done it with one simple sentence. Still, he never thanked her. His grief had built invisible walls around his heart. The following weeks brought even greater changes. The children began sleeping longer, eating better, laughing louder. Teachers at preschool reported dramatic improvements. Everyone celebrated. Except Maya. She simply smiled quietly and continued working. Late one rainy evening, one of the housekeepers approached Ethan. "Sir, I think Maya works too hard." "Sir, what do you mean?" "I've never seen her take a proper lunch break. She gives most of her meals to the children." Ethan frowned. "Why?" The woman hesitated. "I don't think she has much food at home." He dismissed the idea immediately. "I pay her fairly." The housekeeper nodded politely. "Yes, sir." But she knew something Ethan didn't. Every Friday, Maya sent nearly every dollar she earned to the foster family caring for her little daughter. She kept only enough money for bus fare and a tiny rented room. Most nights, she went to bed hungry. Yet every morning she arrived with a warm smile. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan accidentally overheard another conversation. Olivia whispered to Maya, "Can you stay forever?" Maya smiled sadly. "I don't know if I can." "Why?" "Sometimes life changes." Olivia hugged her tightly. "Then I'll ask Daddy to keep you." Maya kissed her forehead. "Sweetheart." Some people aren't meant to stay forever. But love can. Ethan felt something tighten inside his chest. Why did every word this woman spoke seem to heal wounds no one else could reach? Still, he remained distant, professional, polite. He never asked about her life, never wondered why sadness sometimes appeared in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. Until one freezing winter night. The power briefly failed during a fierce storm. Lightning flashed across the mansion. The children panicked. Their terrified cries echoed through the halls. By the time the backup generators restored electricity, the mansion had fallen strangely quiet. Ethan rushed upstairs toward the nursery. He expected chaos. Instead, he found a sight that stopped his heart. The triplets were peacefully asleep on the floor, wrapped around Maya like she was the safest place on earth. And that single heartbreaking moment was about to reveal a secret no one inside the Caldwell mansion had ever imagined. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, unable to believe what he was seeing. The room was silent except for the gentle rhythm of 4 peaceful breaths. Maya had no blanket, no pillow. She had folded her thin sweater beneath the children's heads to make them comfortable while she rested directly on the hardwood floor. One tiny hand rested on her cheek, another on her shoulder, while little Olivia's feet were tucked beneath Maya's arm as though she instinctively knew this woman would protect her from the world. For a long moment, Ethan simply stared. Then something caught his eye. Maya's socks had holes in them. The realization struck him harder than any business failure ever had. The woman caring for his children, the woman who had brought laughter back into his home, didn't even own a decent pair of socks. He quietly stepped into the room and bent down to lift Noah into his bed. But the little boy instantly clung tighter to Maya. "No," Noah murmured in his sleep. "Don't leave, Mama." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He knew Noah hadn't meant to replace his mother. He meant safety, comfort, love. Maya slowly opened her eyes and immediately sat up. "I'm so sorry, sir," she whispered, clearly embarrassed. "The storm frightened them. They refused to sleep unless I stayed with them. I didn't want to wake you." Ethan looked around the room. "You slept on the floor all night?" She gave a small smile. "The children needed the beds more than I did." It was such a simple answer. No complaint, no expectation of praise, just quiet kindness. For the first time since Sarah died, Ethan felt ashamed. He had spent millions trying to fix his children's broken hearts, yet the greatest gift they had received came from someone who expected nothing in return. The next morning, Ethan canceled every meeting. His board of directors was stunned. Investors waited. Phone calls piled up. None of it mattered. He wanted to know who Maya Johnson really was. Later that afternoon, he asked her to join him in the library. She looked nervous as she entered. "If I've done something wrong—" "You haven't," Ethan interrupted gently. "I just want to know your story." For several seconds, she remained silent. Then she took a deep breath. "My husband died 3 years ago. I couldn't keep up with rent. I lost my apartment. My daughter, Grace, she was placed with a foster family while I searched for stable work." Her voice trembled. "I promised her I'd come back. I've been working every day since. I send almost every paycheck to help support her. I thought if I could save enough money, I could bring her home." Tears filled her eyes. "But every time I get close, another expense comes." She quickly wiped her face. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be telling you this." Ethan couldn't speak. He thought about the luxury cars sitting untouched in his garage, the private jet he rarely used, the watches worth more than Maya earned in years, and this woman had quietly sacrificed everything for her child, while helping heal his own. That evening, Ethan made a phone call, then another, then another. Over the next week, investigators confirmed everything Maya had said. She had never abandoned her daughter. She had simply been poor. Her foster caseworker described Maya as one of the most devoted mothers she'd ever met. "There was never a lack of love," the woman explained, "only a lack of money." Those words haunted Ethan. Only a lack of money. A week later, Maya was dusting the living room when Ethan asked her to sit down. She looked confused. "I've made a decision," he said. "I hope you'll hear me out." She nodded quietly. "I'd like to create a trust fund to help reunite you with your daughter." Maya stared at him. "I've also arranged legal assistance. And if you're willing, I'd like to promote you." She blinked in disbelief. "Promote me? Or I don't need another maid. My children need someone who truly loves them. I'd like you to become their full-time caregiver. The salary will be 5 times what you're earning now." Maya burst into tears. She tried to speak but couldn't. Finally, she whispered one sentence. "You've given me my daughter back." 3 months later, Grace came home. She was a shy little 6-year-old with bright eyes and cautious smiles. The day she arrived at the Caldwell mansion, the triplets ran toward her without hesitation. "You're Maya's baby!" Emma shouted happily. Grace looked uncertain. "I am." Olivia took her hand. "Then you're our sister, too." Grace smiled for the first time, a real smile. Soon the mansion that had once echoed with grief became filled with laughter again. Birthday parties, movie nights, blanket forts, cookie disasters in the kitchen. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator doors. Even the staff noticed Ethan had changed. He came home before sunset. He read bedtime stories himself. He laughed more, worked less. One afternoon, while watching all 4 children chase butterflies across the garden, Ethan turned to Maya. "You know," he said softly, "I thought I hired someone to clean my house." Maya laughed. "I suppose I haven't done a very good job." "Oh, you did." He smiled. "But not the house. You cleaned something far more important. My heart." Months later, during a charity gala attended by some of the wealthiest people in the country, Ethan stood before hundreds of guests. Everyone expected another speech about business success. Instead, he told a different story. He spoke about a woman who had slept on a cold floor so 3 frightened children could finally rest. A woman who never asked for recognition, who gave love when her own heart was breaking. Then, to everyone's surprise, he invited Maya onto the stage. The room erupted in applause. Many guests wiped away tears. Ethan handed her a small velvet box. Inside was not jewelry, it was a gold key. "What is this?" Maya whispered. He smiled warmly. "A house. It's yours. No mortgage. No rent. A home for you and Grace." The audience stood in a thunderous ovation, but Maya wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking at Grace, her daughter, safe, home, loved. Years later, when the triplets were old enough to understand, people often asked them what had helped them survive the darkest chapter of their lives. They never mentioned the mansion, the wealth, or their father's success. They always gave the same answer. It was the woman who slept on the floor. Because true kindness is never measured by how much money someone has. It is measured by what they are willing to give when they have every reason to keep it for themselves. Sometimes the greatest heroes don't wear expensive suits or stand on grand stages. Sometimes they wear worn-out shoes, hide their own pain behind gentle smiles, and quietly change lives one act of love at a time. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Kindness of Power, like this video, and share it with someone who still believes compassion can transform the world. And before you go, tell us in the comments which city and country you're watching from. Your story matters too. Remember, a single act of kindness can become the beginning of someone else's miracle.